Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a awesome guest, Coach Armando Gonzalez. Coach Gonzalez coaches for the Rigby Trojans, is a high school teacher. He came to Rigby from California in 2017. He's been here 9 years. We are responsible. He's won the state championship 5 out of the last 7 years.
That's correct.
So I'm excited to have Coach on here because he's just a great mentor leader, but his standards and his processes and the way that he thinks, I truly feel like anybody could implement it in any business or organization, and he's a great example to me on leadership. So anyway, Coach, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate you giving me reaching out last night.
So
sorry to throw you under the
bus. He's been talking about having you on for months. Of that.
No, I know. I appreciate it.
So Coach, tell us. So from the beginning. And Jason, hasn't heard the story, but tell us. I mean, you and I have talked that a lot of people look at 5 championships won in the last 7 years. How many championships have you been to since you've been to Rigby?
6. So yeah, we've been to 6. We won 5. Basically, we've been in the state championship 6 out of the last 7 years. The only year we didn't was the 2023 year, which was probably our best team talent-wise. But that's how life is sometimes.
Yeah.
So a lot of people look at the top of the mountain, and as far as the one of the highest in Rigby, the best football team. A lot of people in the state of Idaho, a lot of people look at that and think everybody was born there. And so you have an awesome story. I know Jason would love to hear it. So fast track us on that. I know that you're short for time, but
no worries. Where do I start? I think that number one, as I was mentioning, kind of as we were talking before we started, growing up in a Christian family, number one, where the seeds are planted in terms of kind of how you start thinking about life. Even though I completely rebelled at a certain point and ran from it. I think that's a story. I mean, there's so many stories that are like that for all of us. But I think that, thank God that he did plant those seeds. So my stepdad had a huge role in my life in terms of just providing me the foundation to kind of build the right way. And so when I had the opportunity, to get into coaching, obviously then my real dad had a huge impact on that because he was a coach. My stepdad was involved in sports too. He played minor league baseball or lower league baseball, college baseball for a while, and played football in high school and as well. And so sports has been part of my life on either side. But my real dad being a high school coach really influenced me because I knew I wanted to be in education pretty early on. I didn't know I wanted to coach in college. That kind of came a little later. But as I was going through college myself and trying to figure out what I was going to do, I'm like, well, I want to coach in college. And so I kind of went down that path first. And that's what took me to Cal State Northridge. And so kind of that's where I'll start with like where I met Aaron Flowers. He was in 1997. He was the quarterback for Cal State Northridge. He was in that year. In his second year, he got there in 96. He was at the time, they call it FCS now, but at the time it was 1AA. And, he was the national leader in total offense, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, passing leader, set all the Northridge passing records. And so I was kind of just starting as a young, volunteer coach at the time. And that's where we connected for the first time. And then the rest is history, because from that point there, we've kind of, weaved in and out, right? Towards, coaching with each other, then away. And he went to Montana State. We coached, a couple years there together. Then he went to Montana State, gets his first full-time job. And they dropped the program at Northridge. I go to the junior college route. Doesn't quite work out. I don't like the junior college, atmosphere. And then my high school coach calls me and is like, hey, we have a head coach opening. Do you want to come be the head coach? And wow. And so I had always kind of been putting it off because I was there 5 years at Northridge, thinking I want to go the college route. But, as with anything else, you got to have certain connections, and I didn't have those connections yet at that stage of my career. So I thought, let's kind of go back to high school. My dad was a high school coach, and I was getting married as well in 2002. So, my wife's like, I'm not moving all around. Basically, she didn't say this out loud, but I got the feeling I'm not moving all around the country to go chase your dream. So I kind of came to the realization that high school is not, I don't think I'm settling. I felt like I had a role to play for, especially young boys, at that stage in their lives. And so I went back to Dos Pueblos High School in Santa Barbara, became the head coach. And Aaron, like I said, was off coaching at Montana State. And then at that point, things didn't go so well. I learned some lessons there as a head coach. And you go back to your high school thinking it's all going to be great, and then you realize, man, this culture is hard to change. Right? You don't see that when you were just a player or a young coach there. I did start there in my younger years before I went off to Northridge, and so I just realized in the AD who hired me, Scott O'Leary, he passed away, and that was a huge piece for me because that was kind of my mentor. And then things began to change, and then we weren't doing so well, and then literally, and I'll mention this only because I think this is a good lesson for all leaders, and I think we need to go through this whether we like it or not. I remember my second year as a head coach, the athletic director at the time, called me in normal year-end review, usually how things going and how we're going into next year, and I was not expecting it at all. And my first year we made the playoffs and we were decent, and then the second year we didn't, and we were not very good. But he called me and he said, Armando, we're not going to, ask you back to be our head coach for this next year or moving forward. And I talk about being floored, like blown away. And I was like, really? And so I left that and just like, okay, what do I do now? I wasn't just going to keep teaching there. I mean, I got into teaching because I also want to coach. So wherever I'm going to teach, I'm also going to coach. And I feel like for whoever the next head coach is going to be, it's not fair to that coach to have a bunch of dead soldiers, we call them, on campus that are just teaching in the classroom and taking up positions. But I now as I look back at that was 2002, 2003, I think, in there. And I look back and I'm like, man, I needed to go through that. If I didn't go through that, right, I don't think I'd be the head coach I am today.
Right.
And so that kind of, I went down to Orange County, connected with my dad, who was a head coach at a high school. Aaron came back from Montana State. We reconnected again. And then, like I said, he ends up taking up over a program, and they were building a new school in the district that we both took over. I became the AD. He became the head football coach. And then as we were building that, we learned a lot together, and that was a great experience. Again, another thing we had to go through, right? The ups and downs. It's like you're like looking at each other, going like, "What are we doing here?" Like, it's like where you're starting to kind of like the things you really believe in. Right, it's like you get to put them into play, and you realize that doesn't work. That doesn't work, and so we went 0-10 his first year as head coach, and then built that to a competitive program in South Orange County, which is very competitive. And we got all these private schools around us. I mean, San Juan Hills, San Juan Capistrano is the city, right, and San Juan Hills is down there. I mean, within that area, we've got 5 private schools. That are all taking, 1 or 2 year best players. Right. Yeah. So it's like you're trying to compete at a high level, and you got all this, great opportunities for families in terms of education all around you. So I felt we did a really good job of building that program, and I did as the AD, putting them on a level playing field with at least everybody else. And then I just got to a certain point where I just felt it was time to go. I was getting burnt out. I know Aaron could speak for himself, but I could sense that as well with both of us.
Was that more the role or the area, or what was that?
I just feel like, I think it's the role. I think, being as an AD in South Orange County, the clientele's different. To say the least. I would say you have a lot more high maintenance personalities, especially coming from families and parents. And I think that's what's changing in the landscape of high school sports right now, that I feel like that we're blessed with here in this community. And so it just wears on you when you get off. I was coaching, you get off the field and go check your email, and you got 100 emails. It's like I can't keep up. Like it's too much, and it's like every little thing. Everybody wants to something for it. It's like and so after 9 years the AD and being an assistant there with Aaron and helping him build that, I just felt like I don't think I could make it. Like it's going to burn me out. And so, being coaching in the Big Sky at Cal State Northridge and being in the Northwest, I loved it up here.
Yeah.
And I just started looking for opportunities, and then that Rigby happened.
So real quick. So on that, you get burnout. You fast forward. You come to Rigby, and I mean, Rigby was like the football program was okay.
Yeah.
And you get into that, 2017. We talked about it, that it wasn't like this immediate thing. So 2 questions I guess I have is one, when you get with Aaron at the beginning of, say, the Rigby, thing,
Yep.
and it's going to be a project, maybe tell us about what kind of planning or what kind of strategy goes into that. And then the side of that, if we can touch on it later too, but you saw how parents were maybe in California and things like that, and I do think that you could say the same thing about different parts of Idaho Falls or East Idaho, I should say, of parents that are tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tricky wherever you go.
It is, no doubt.
Absolutely.
And so how did you create that standard and culture in Rigby? Because it's very different from the parents I talk to and the people I talk to. It's just a way different, thing with the program. So maybe start with the planning with Aaron, and then
Aaron joined me my second year here. So when I got here in 2017, he was in his last year as a head coach at San Juan Hills. Okay. When I told him I was leaving, he was not. He was kind of pissed. Like, dude, are you serious? And I do remember I was sitting in my AD office at the time and showing him like some clips of, I think it was Tanner Clayton's junior year. Like, dude, they got a quarterback. Like, hey, why don't you? I literally said, why don't you apply for the head job? And let's go up there. Because I really did, after my experience, so I guess maybe there was some bitterness that I did harbor internally myself.
Right.
I didn't want to be a head coach again. I was not looking for that. And again, I think that goes back to a lot of things, thinking about it back to my Christian foundation of like, sometimes you've got a calling that you can't run from, but we tend to run from that, right? And so I didn't want to be a head coach. So I was like, trying to convince him to do it.
Right.
And he's like, dude, they're not going to hire me. Like, Mr. Pessimist, they're going to hire me. Look at my record, right? Like, who's going to hire me? That's typical Aaron. But anyways, so I just said, well, I can't do it. I'm going to go. So anyways, I did. They hired me. I get here in 2017. And so I guess the first lesson that I learned from all those experiences prior to that, whether, be high school, at Dos Pueblos, at Cal State Northridge, at Dana Hills, San Juan Hills, the places we were together, I realized from the very beginning, okay, if I'm going to do this again, I'm going to do it the right way. I mean, what does that mean, the right way?
Yeah, exactly. That was my next question.
And so the number one thing for me was, like, this is going to be about building relationships right. And I really believe, I think Stephen Covey said it, I read it years ago, like, the glue that holds relationships together is trust. And so everything we do is going to be transparent, right? There's no hidden agenda. I'm going to be as clear as I can with the people involved in our program, whether it be players and parents, coaches that get involved, and we were going to add the right people, and we were going to build relationships based on trust. And I felt if I did that, I think that's what I didn't do, and maybe I didn't have the complete control over it in previous opportunities that I had. Yeah. That I felt like if I could do that now, that's what the foundation is going to be on. And we want to attract people that want to be a part of something great. And that's kind of how it started again. And then I don't know what it was, but in 2018, Aaron probably was not having the best experience his last year as a head coach, and his wife basically bought him a plane ticket. She's like, go up and see. We were playing the playoffs against Mountain View in 2017. She's like, go visit Armando. You need to get out of here. And he came up and went back home, and they came up that winter, and then that next year he joined us. Him and his family joined us, and in 2018. And then I felt like that was the piece, because I was running the offense in 2017, and I played quarterback, and I was an offensive coordinator, and I was on the offensive side of the ball most of my first half of my career. But I had been on the defensive side, and I enjoy that way more now. Like
Really?
It's kind of it kind of revived my career in a sense, football wise.
Yeah.
To where like I learned a whole new aspect of the game. You know, as an offensive coach, you see offenses, and so I can look at structure. Like, okay, here's what they're doing. You know, cover 3, cover 2, all the lingo of like coverages, and they're in this front. But I didn't know how to teach it.
Right.
Okay.
You're right. I didn't know like what are they teaching those guys on that side of the ball. So once I was exposed to that, I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like this is cool. So it kind of like gave me a new life in my football career too. So I enjoyed that more than being on the offensive side. So when I had to come back and run the offense that first year, I was like, oh, this is terrible. I just kind of grit my teeth through it. And at the time I was, Jeremy Livingston was kind of, he was going to help me, and then he left because, ended up moving to Utah. So I had to do it. And then Brooke Talbot was the defense coordinator. Poor Brooke. Poor Brooke that first year. I was basically like, oh, here you go, figure it out. Because I gave him our system, my defensive system, and then took over the offense. So when Aaron joined us, I feel like that was in terms of the football aspect of it, that really provided a huge piece that I felt like made us gave us the ability to make the jump quicker and be competitive on the field than maybe it would have been with just me doing it. And I think that's a lesson we could all learn as leaders. Like, man, you can't do it by yourself. Like when you find those people, or you have those people, and it just so happened to work out to where, they did join us. So
I think that's a huge key, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you find people that can do things that maybe you don't love.
That's correct.
And that probably can do it better than you.
That's right.
And then you can focus on the things that you do love and that you excel at.
That's right.
Or that you're excited about too.
Yeah, that's
that
right.
seems like an easy common sense thing, but I think so many people struggle with that, right?
Yeah, or you don't know how to give up certain things.
True.
Right? Because like you asked me before, it's like we're such driven perfectionists, you could say, right? Type of personalities, a lot of us, that I don't know how to give this up. So when you do come across someone that can, and you recognize that, man, you need to do whatever you can to add them to your organization, because I think that's vital. I think for your own mental health too, right? Your own sense of like, I could do this and do this pretty well, but then how long can I do this?
Right, the burnout.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I feel like, adding that back, Aaron coming back, and then and he was already in line with my vision, right? We already believed the same things in terms of where we want to go with a program and building an organization. That I think that was an easy transition for him, because he's not going to a new situation. He knows what I'm trying to accomplish. We had gone through it together, and we had made the mistakes together, and we'd had the pain and together. All the stuff we went through, the challenges and the adversity of working together in the previous years. So, and then from there, just adding people that had that same, could align with us.
Yeah.
I think alignment is really critical in any organization.
Right.
And adding the right people. Because and I was telling you before, like I also said, early on, I intentionally choose to be more shorthanded, where I have to do more so that I could do things the way I want them done first. And then as we grow through the years, as you come across people, it's like, okay, we can add these people. And now it's like my dad came to the state championship game, a few weeks ago, and he's sitting in the classroom, and like, we've got like 30 coaches in there, and he's like, son, and he was a coach. He's like, how many coaches do you have? That's awesome. It's like you got, and so what we've tried to do over the years is add the right people that have our same vision and values and mission, and can that are good with kids. Like, I don't really even care about scheme anymore, football scheme. I really don't. I feel like I can teach a coach the scheme.
Yeah.
Especially with Aaron there. Aaron can teach the offensive things he needs for a coach. And I can teach the defensive things. But so we're more concerned about when we add people, like, who are you? What are you about? Right? What type of man are you? That's what our young men, our boys need more than anything else. And that's what I mean by doing things right.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I love football. 20 years ago, football was great and I enjoyed it. And I still love the schematic aspect and the competition and the strategy aspect of it. But I think for me, that's secondary to all the other things that we have the platform to do in this position.
So that being said, so I have a son in the program, and I see the structure, the systems, and the standards, right? And I know just from being in business, those three things are always tricky and tough in different ways. And I feel like, and you're going to probably disagree with me, but I feel like you're somebody who's close to have mastered these for on the high school, for outside looking in on the high school football program. So how do you bring in these the standards, the structure, and how do you implement these things and hold these kids? So my son, great kid, typical 16-year-old, will growl about anything, but when it comes to waking up early to go to weights, for some reason he's not like, he'll be tired, but he's not like he just gets up, grabs the shoes, he's out the door, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, I can't get him out on a 4 p.m. on a Saturday just to take the trash out without a little. Yeah. So how and I know that it's different, right? When you're a parent, that's not what I mean, but what is it that you do that gets these kids to buy in so clearly and get parents to buy in so clearly?
Oh man,
get coaches to buy in so clearly. You've got 30 of them.
We have about. Do we got like 3 hours? Well, I think the first thing for me is number one. I didn't make any of this up. Right. I feel like what I do well is I can distill and take things that I've learned over the years, both theory-based, right, reading in a book, or practical-based, right, actually doing and seeing or being involved with, and then implement it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I really believe like all great coaches are great teachers. And so I feel like that's what I've refined in terms of my craft at how do we teach this? How are we going to get this across to these kids? How does that message, right? How do we get that ingrained in people? And so I think that's the one thing. And it's kind of like become cliche. I've heard it so much now over these probably the last 2-3 years from a lot of coaches and business people, across the board is, it's like, well, we're process based. It's like it's become a cliche now. It's like overused, I think, but but it is, the reality is what being process based is that we've surrendered the outcome. Like that's ultimately what it comes down to. There's a good book that we use with the kids, right? Chop wood, carry water. I think Josh Metcalf is the author of that book. That's kind of like our first book that we use with the freshmen coming in to teach them about the process. And one of the lessons in there that I learned we used this at San Juan Hills when Aaron was head coach, was surrender the outcome. And I remember the first time I ever really had to kind of put that into action as a coach was that first year in 2017 when we played Mountain View. And Brooke, I remember he told me the year before they had played Mountain View in the first round or quarterfinals. The first year Rigby was in 5A, right, and they got beat like 50-7. And I remember him telling me, he's like, on the way home, I'm sitting on the bus thinking to myself, how are we ever going to compete with these teams in Boise? Like I don't know how we're going to do it. And then I got hired, and that first year we faced Mountain View as our first second playoff game. We won against Bora, and I'm looking at the film going, there's no way. I mean, I tell the kids this story all the time. Like, okay, I'm just as much of a doubter as any of you guys, so I'm no different, right? We all have doubts,
right,
about like, can we compete with this type of team and this competition level? And I mean, they've got athletes everywhere, and they're big up front, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, we're about to get our ass kicked. I mean, that's honestly, you look at it going, man, this is. So I literally had to tell myself, and that was my message to the team. It's like, okay, boy, like, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, you see them, you're going to see them on film all week. You're going to be like, how are you going to compete with these guys? So let's just surrender the outcome. Honestly, I just said, let's just surrender the outcome, focus on what we can control, and see what happens. And we lost 14-13. They had to go for 2 to beat us.
Wow. So
that was the first lesson that I learned, and I share that with teams now over the years of we have to eliminate the distractions of the results, right? the profits sometimes
Right.
Yeah.
as a business,
Right.
to really say, how are we doing this? What are we doing on a daily basis? And I think that's where, for me, it goes back to the habits and discipline of daily action. I think that's what I've tried to get through to these kids. It's the daily action. We have to be consistent daily, because anybody can be good one time, right? But it's like, how do you sustain that over a period of time? And so really, I think my main message for our program is we're chasing excellence.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm saying excellence in the Greek understanding. A lot of people don't know I'm a philosophy teacher too. So I'm saying excellence in the Greek understanding of excellence. The Greek word is arete. And what that basically means is like, are we fulfilling our function at the highest level? And the Greeks didn't just apply that to human beings, but when they did apply it to human beings. It's like you could have a pen, right? It's like I have certain pens, like, man, this pen is arete, right? It's great.
Right.
It fulfills its function, right? And Aristotle uses certain examples like that in his writings. But when you get it to the human aspect, the human element, it's like the big question is like, what do human beings look like when they're functioning at their best? That's excellence. And so for me, it's like, how do we get that mentally, physically, spiritually, right? Morally. And when you focus on that, like a sense of harmony and wholeness in our existence as human beings, the rest takes care of itself. And I didn't do that in my early career.
Right.
I didn't focus on that. And I still think that's for me, it's like, we're chasing excellence, right? And I think then that really guides everything else we do. With regard to, because that is process based.
Yeah.
So when you say this, do you think, without sounding like you're patting yourself on your back, but I mean, do you feel like maybe there's parents like maybe myself or some of these others that maybe have their kids go through it, and you see them learning these things of just being better, or there's perfection's a direction, not a place.
Yeah.
Right? So you see them trying to pursue this excellence that you're talking about. Do you think that that's what maybe helps the buy-in of parents, being like, like in my case, Oliver wouldn't be doing this if he was in another, program, or if he didn't have the program, let's say.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's what helps the parents buy in? Is their kids, or maybe you could even say leading with example?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I mean, what we're doing should show up in other places. Like we can't compartmentalize what we do, and we often do that as human beings, right? It's like, well, at work I'm one thing, but at home I'm another thing, right? And for me, I mean, I want to be able to teach the lessons to our kids that when you go off, you're a father, and you go off to your job, right? Then you are who you are. That doesn't change from the setting doesn't change you. Yeah. You are who you are no matter the setting. And so a small lesson for them is like, if you're that way in our program, then I expect you to be that way at home too.
Right.
And hopefully that my job is to compliment, John Wooden said, right? We have a sacred trust being built with our players, right? And it's a partnership that I see, that I've been able to complement what parents are doing at home in what I'm doing in our program, so that we have that consistency. And I feel like that's what, a lot of people want to know what's the secret sauce. I really believe being in a community that has Christian values is a difference maker. Like I'm not saying everybody has to be a Christian or you have to be religious, but I'm just saying that it's different.
Yeah.
And when I have the kids, for the most part, hearing the same message at home that I'm saying at school with them in our program, and vice versa, then we can accomplish great things.
Right.
So do you find that buy-in, so the new kids coming in every year, is it buy-in a little bit easier now that you've got it rolling, or every year is it kind of a struggle to get them to buy in?
The kids, it's not any easier.
Okay.
Really?
The parents, I feel like because they see the results, right, over the years,
right.
I feel like the community and the families, they're like, we trust him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But teenagers are teenagers.
They don't care what you did last year.
And they
weren't a part of it.
And they're so short-term memory oriented, and so myopic in their view of life that half of them don't even know who Keegan Thompson is. Think about it. That's only a few years ago.
Right.
So it's like, you think, we've been in 5 state championships. Oh, they should know, right? Half of them probably don't even know.
Right.
But I mean, I think that's one thing we do intentionally do. We do have to teach our history and our tradition, so they do remember those. I think because I think that's a big part of when you understand you're part of something greater than yourself, then it is easier to buy in. So that has to be more intentional now on our part than it was maybe at the beginning.
So what do you do for that?
That's a great question. So I think number one, we try very early on when they're coming in as freshmen to make sure that we highlight those people that I think the history of our program needs to be transmitted, right? And so a few years ago, we started putting up the posters, right, throughout the stadium of those great players in our history. In meetings a few years ago, I got back from Oregon, we went to go visit them, and you go in the meeting room, you see like a picture of one of their former players on the screen as their kind of screensaver. And so I'll put those, and so in the meeting rooms, it's like we'll have those up and it'll say their name, and we'll bring them up like, hey, this is Keegan Thompson, hey, he was an all-state player, and he's one of the founders of what he set the foundation for what you guys are able to be a part of now and experience. I know Aaron within our Chop Wood Carry Water lessons and in our where we teach our core values in the spring. In his lessons, we incorporate those people and those lessons from their lives, like Fecky, for example, Pua, all-state lineman, probably one of the first all-state linemen. I think Tommy Togiai was the all-player of the year a few years ago, and now it's like, well, what did he do? What were his actions daily, right? But using those examples, just like we get examples in any story. Right. I think that's what I think. One thing we're missing in our society is we've lost sense of what story we're a part of. Like, we're part of a grand story, all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're so disconnected with our social media at times, and thinking we have to carry the burden of life all on our own shoulders, and know that there's so many great people that have gone before us, right, that we should be reading about and telling their story to give us that encouragement. Say, well, I can do this too. And I think that's where chasing excellence is big for me. Like we do use that word, magnanimity, which we mentioned early. Like that's an old Latin phrase, right? That basically communicates like, we're chasing greatness, right? Being magnanimous is like, I want to be great. I don't want to just be average. Right. And I guess I got that from my stepdad. He always used to tell me, Mondo, don't be satisfied with good. Right. You want to be great. And so all those little things, they just come back to me, and I'm able to try and share those now with our players. But I really believe it goes back to we're part of a grand story. Right. And so, we're writing our own story right now as we speak. And in the Rigby football program is writing its story. And so I think we want to be part of a great story. And so all of those things come together into like getting kids to buy into like you're part of something bigger than you, because too often in our society we are raising our children in a very narcissistic, selfie, me-oriented society. Right. And I think that's not healthy, and we wonder why we have mental health problems with our kids, and anxiety and depression and teenage suicide and all the things that are happening, especially with boys. People don't realize young men from the ages, I think it's 18 to 30-something, have the highest suicide rate in our society. Right. Why is that? There's reasons for that. And so I think that's what we need to start. And I think that's my little way to kind of take an axe to the root of the problem, rather than just deal with the superficial answers that we see around us, is to start doing what I'm doing with these boys at their age.
So when you, it reminds me of one of the first times that you and I met was through Garrett at our mastermind. Yeah. And Chad Kirby was the one that, the first time I met him. And I remember it, like you came in and my thoughts were you were super high. And then you said this thing like, we're winning and our expectations high, and how do you keep these new kids coming in and to keep that going? You know what I mean? Like to keep that that good to great sort of thing going. And that kind of blew my mind that was what was on your mind at that point, is how do we keep this standard of excellence, going? And so I ask you of that, how have you kind of figured that out to keep that standard high? And then how do you keep that standard when we talk about just mental health of how do you keep that so that you don't feel burnout or that you don't feel that monotonous stress that, can come in of just trying to be great all the time or this high standard all the time?
Yeah, man, and I think that's what happened in 2023. I felt that tangibly in our kids, where I felt the stress was too much that year because of our previous success. And I don't know if we can control it, but I think that's where it goes back to when you surrender the outcome and you focus on those things that you can control on a daily basis. Then I tell the kids all the time, like, we can be at peace. You're not always happy with the result.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're disappointed. And sometimes you're going to lose some games that you should have won, and vice versa. Sometimes you win some games you should have lost. But at the end of the day, I think how we measure it goes back to what are we doing on a daily basis? What are our habits and what are the discipline that I gave it everything I could. I put everything I could on the table. And if that isn't good enough, sometimes that's okay. It's not good enough. Sometimes the other team's better.
Right.
They're better. We've been fortunate to be on the upper, on the other side of that, more often than not. Because I think if you focus on the process and surrendering the outcome and the details of the daily habits and actions, then it's kind of weird. It's like, I don't know, you call it karma or whatever else you want to call it, right? It's like it kind of works out in your favor most of the time.
And when you say that, it makes me think this, but let's say, the time that you did lose state. The time you do lose state, it's one game. You didn't lose the month. You didn't lose the year.
Yeah.
It was one game that maybe defined, the whole season. But that's what makes me think of when you think, or when you say, maybe you just weren't good enough. You weren't good enough at that time, but you come back. And if you come back with that excellence or that pursuit,
that's right,
then you're going to win more than you're going to lose.
That's exactly it. We're creating an environment where winning is a natural result of the process. That's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to create, the culture. Again, another word that's used right now, I think, too much, and people don't really understand what that means. But we're trying to create the environment, the culture of how you do things, to where it's a natural outcome. Winning is a natural, profits, success are natural outcomes of everything that you've put into place to that point. So we had to be very intentional, at a certain point in our program. And that's where I said, I'm going to do things right when I got to Rigby. Whereas before I believed something, I didn't necessarily do it. There's a difference between belief and action, right? I can believe something, but doesn't mean I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So I believe that, building kids is what we should be doing in high school sports. That I had to at some point ask myself, how am I doing that on a daily basis in my program? And I had to look at it and say, I'm not doing that very good in my other opportunities. And I said, here at Rigby, we're going to do that well. So we're very intentional about that. An example is in the spring, because we're fortunate enough to have the kids in a weightlifting class, year round. Most of them, some go to other sports, which is fine. But we have the majority of them in a class. In the spring, we say we are going to spend time once a week reading a book, going through the lessons of our culture, our values, our vision, our mission, so that they are clear on what we're about. And we do that from the ninth graders go through Chopwood Carry Water. Right now, usually Coach Birch or Coach Mauser does that. Coach Flowers takes them through our core values and our core principles as a program. The four being, brotherhood, sharpen the axe, championship competitor, and ride for the brand.
And how often does he do that?
Once a week through the whole third trimester. So we take, they live 4 days a week, and we take one of those days, the fifth day of the week, whatever day it works out, and they, instead of going to the in the weight room that day, they come in our classrooms and we split up by class, and we go through those lessons. And part of it's us teaching, part of it's us talking about something with them, because you want to try and make it as engaging with them as possible, not just listening to us talk all the time, because I think we do want to get what they think about it and how they view it. And then I take the guys that are juniors, going to be seniors, and my primary aim with our juniors that are going to be seniors each spring is what is your legacy going to be in our program, and what your role is as a mentor to the underclassmen. Like I really I think the thing I'm most proud of in our program is and don't get me wrong, someone's going to listen like, oh yeah, this happened, right? But I think we do a really superb job of not having very much separation between the classes in terms of, I remember when I was in high school, you guys probably remember, it's like, I was terrified as a freshman walking by the varsity locker room.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
The seniors were going to pull me in there and stuff me in a locker.
Yeah, right? That was the culture, right?
Right? Like
yeah.
that was the culture of athletics in the 90s.
Yep.
Well, and that's what I have friends, and some of them played for Rigby when I was younger, and I was like, the football kids were the worst.
Yeah, I know.
And now I look at it, and I tell people, I believe this, and some people may listen to me like, well, there's this.
Yeah, there's always going to be those extremes.
But I do feel like you have a large number now of stewards, of people who are looking out for people, who respect the other classmates, because it sounds, I don't know, cheesy maybe, but I feel like these football players really know who are supporting them.
Yeah.
And I just, watching them, I just see how kind they are at different things.
Yeah.
And anyway, I think that's really cool too.
I think you hit the nail on the head with using that word stewardship. I believe that they have become stewards of, and that's what their role is. And so, but I have been intentional about teaching them that over the years. Again, they're teenagers and they do stupid things, and they say stupid things, and they still pick on each other. And they're boys,
right?
And boys are boys, and no one wants to hear that, but it is true. That's how we get along with each other,
right?
Yeah. Or don't get along with each other sometimes, right?
It's a natural nature.
Yeah,
thing.
it is. So we have to guide them along that path.
Right.
But I think at the end of the day, they've my goal with those guys who are going to be seniors is like, okay, you're mentoring those so that they understand. There has to be a certain level of respect, but you have to earn that respect.
Right.
Right. It's not just because you're a senior, all of a sudden you just get it.
Right.
And so I think that's an example of us being intentional about how we indoctrinate, so to speak, right? Our values, our vision, and continue this to where you do get the buy-in. Because I think after the kids go through that, over the course of years, and then they see it from us, because we model it every day as coaches, and then they see it in action, I think that it becomes easier to buy in to say, I want to be a part of that.
Well, I think overall we're pretty tribal people as well.
Yeah.
And kids, they want to be a part of something. And for a freshman to go through that and have somebody kind of mentor them in that, I mean, what a better high school experience they're going to have than most of us did, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And so it's going to be amazing. And so for them to be able to get to that point and reciprocate that is huge. To be in that other position, that's probably an honor almost to be in that role for them.
And certain classes have done it better than others, right? Like certain senior classes, I'm like, man, if I remember, like, for example, when we went in 2018, when 2018, when we didn't make the playoffs, the only year we haven't, I felt that senior class did the best job of probably any of the classes that I've had in the 9 years of cultivating that sense of brotherhood that has now just become part of the program. Like, we've had new players come into our program occasionally, right? That are either moved here or whatever, for whatever reason. And it's like they immediately sense something different, right? About the sense of togetherness and unity, not necessarily agreement on everything, right? But it's like, no, we're doing the right things, and this is the standard, and this is why we do them, and hey, we expect you to hold that. We're going to hold you accountable, and those type of things. And so there's just that sense of brotherhood, and I felt like the 2018 team did that better, and then a lot of the classes I've had, and then other classes have done other parts of our core value, right, better than others. But at the end of the day, I feel like, we, in terms of like your question of how do you get that buy-in and consistently,
right?
I think there's no one thing.
And no one person.
There's no one person. It's all of us. It's all of us together, aligned together, having the same vision of why we want to be a part of this in the first place. And I think that's why you need a higher purpose, right? Our higher purpose. So I said we're chasing excellence,
right?
Which is great, and we all need to do that. But we also have to have a higher purpose, and I think our higher purpose for us is we build men for others. Like, that's our purpose. Like, what we're doing at the end of the day is you're being built for others, because at some point, And I remember hearing this from Bob Ladouceur, who was the most successful coach probably in high school history, De La Salle High School in Northern California. You know, he was the coach that they did the movie When the Game Stands Tall. We read his books years ago, me and Aaron, and he always talked about, you know, and I heard him talk at one of his banquets, I think it was, he talking about like this sense of like, what does it mean to be a Spartan? They were Spartans. And he said that basically at the end of the day, like if you can leave this program knowing that someone can count on you, I've done my job. Because you're going to be a husband, a brother, a father, a grandfather, way longer than you're going to be an athlete and play this sport.
Right.
So it's like the key is, because right now we get in our own little, right, team environment, we get to foster that sense of like, I need to be able to count on you, because when it's 4-1 at the critical point of the game, like, are you going to come through?
Right.
And so those things translate on and off the field. They just do. But if we can get those things to translate into their life later on, like, hey, you can count on me. You know, when you make that commitment, and I know we live in a society right now where divorce has become more and more common, sadly. And I know there are a lot of reasons for it, right? But at the end of the day, I want our boys to say, you know, if I say I'm going to make a commitment to my wife, then it's for life.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Love that.
Well, shoot, like there's so much to, I guess, unravel and unpack. So when you, real fast, when we talk about standards, I know that sometimes when you raise standards, you lose people.
Yeah.
And I've seen through the years that you have lost people.
Yeah.
And you've lost a lot of good people.
Yep.
And I've also heard rumors of conversations of the way that you are, which are all always positive, you know, like it's unfortunate, but this is who we are. This is what we do. Maybe let's talk about that a little bit of how you're not, I guess, concerned. I don't want to say scared, because everybody's a little nervous or doesn't want to lose people. Yeah. But how do you hold great players to a standard and maybe they kind of want to waver, but you're like, this is what it is. Yeah. And so then they kind of align to the standard and some fall away. How do you not, I guess, worry about the retention of it and share that vision? And
whether it's coaches or players, those are the two areas that obviously, you know, I can control directly, right? We are not, and this is going to sound probably in our day and age kind of odd, but we are not an inclusive environment. We are very exclusive. What does that mean? We cannot, in a high-performing organization, we cannot include everyone. Now, you have the opportunity to be a part of this,
right,
if you can chase excellence like we do. But if you can't, and the kid, you know, our former players that have come back, you know, Grizz, you know, Cannon Mickelson, Coleman Lords, and a lot of these guys that are now coaching with us as, you know, freshmen or assistants, and they just, you know, you always hear the comments from them that they, you know, repeat that I've made over the years, and they remember they remember vividly me saying, "No, well, maybe this is not for you."
Right.
To people, right?
Right.
And I think it's just the truth. Like, I'm sorry, you know, we can't save everyone. You know, we want you to be a part of this, because I you know, what's the famous sign? I think it's at Michigan. You know, if you stay, you will be a champion. If you stay, but you have to make that choice.
Right.
If you stay and go through this with us, you will be a champion. No matter, I don't care what the scoreboard says. I'm not talking about champion in terms of the actual outward, you know, result or an outcome. Yeah. I'm saying you will be a champion. But they have to make that choice. And if they can't make that choice to do it according to our standard, then it's not for them.
You can't force someone to do it.
You can't no. And so, you know, and then the other thing that our former players that are coming back would tell me is like, Coach, you're way too nice now. I was probably way more strict early on to set the standard. And I think now I'm a little more forgiving, because I do know that, you know, sometimes I say, like, you know, the kids need us more than we need them. Like this kid needs to be in this program. So if I get a kid that's like causing me headaches, which is not often, but if that does happen, now at this stage in my career, I'm a little more lenient in terms of not. I'm not saying lenient in terms of like I'm going to let it get away with stuff, but I'll probably give them a few more opportunities than I may have at the early stages. But at a certain point, we cannot be afraid to say the truth, and I think that's what our program is based on. Our program is based on truth. You may not like to hear it, but you're gonna hear the truth. And I think we need to be able to face ourselves in the mirror and face the truth about who we are and where we're at in our lives. And some young men, players that we have, coaches in our program, are not in a position in their life where they are able to uphold what we're trying to do at this stage. And that's what I mean by it is very exclusive.
I think that'll actually strengthen those that stay, though, because they see that and they see that, oh, I guess, and they're a pretty good player, but if they're not willing to live the standard, they're not a part of the team. Yeah. It almost strengthens them in their resolve to be better and to do the daily and to do those daily actions.
Yeah, they're watching. I mean, that's the thing about teenagers. I mean, you can't, they see right through you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you're going to say something and you're not holding that standard across the board to everyone consistently and fairly, I tell the kids, you're not going to be treated the same, but you're going to be treated fairly.
Right.
And I think that if we treat them fairly, then those kids, realize, we want what's best for them. They're not always going to agree with it. And sometimes you do have to, cut loose. Luckily here, I have not had to do that. I had to do it a couple times very early, I think in 2017, 18 in that span. But I mean, since then, we really haven't had to do that. And I think the kids that you do, maybe test your patience a little more,
right.
That's fine. But ultimately, I felt like at the end of the day, those kids have come around. We've given that opportunity. But it's just not for everybody, for sure.
When one thing we can chat as we're finishing for this segment, because you promised that we could do more. One thing that I mean is close as possible to me, and I've talked to Jason about it. I mean, my son is he struggled a little bit to find a spot in Grid Kid, and what's funny, you may know this, but to the point of when you don't play much in Grid Kid, they put you on the line.
Yeah.
Right? So I would say, you're not a friggin' lineman. And we'd go to camps, and I'd be like, where were you? And he's like, oh, I was with the lineman. And I was like, well, you wanted to play linebacker, all these. He said, well, I'm a lineman. So freshman, he comes in, and they ask him, what position are you? He's like, a lineman. And they're like, all right. And I guess where I'm going with this is now a sophomore going to be a junior. He is working on putting on mass, but he's a 165-pound tackle. And what I've always admired about the program, and at first, like the first year, maybe even started this year, I was a little nervous to talk to coaches like I don't know how to explain it, but I mean, it is what it is, right?
I know where you're going with it, yeah.
And so, but not one time did anyone ever say, had doubts in them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's always a positive thing. And they're just always like, Oliver, you're smart, your technique is great.
Yep.
You got to put on weight, right? Which is fine. But not I guess your process and your standards, how do you not leave kids behind? How do you not like this kid and be like, whew, yeah. Lineman in what world, And how do you not do that? And because for me, I do that all the time. We talked about that a little bit earlier. I overlook people or I underestimate people. How do you not do that?
I'm not going to say we don't do that, because I know I'd be lying to say if certain individuals that have gone through our program in 9 years haven't felt that way. Okay, so I'm sure that it happens.
Right.
But I think that how do we avoid that is as best we can. Is I feel, number one, players coming into our program's view of where they should, where they, play, where they have played, where they think they're going to play, may not match reality.
Right.
Number one. And so they pretty early on, we were very clear with that. Okay, you've played this position, and you just have to realize that may not be where you end up. And then just look at so-and-so. And that's where we're looking at, he started as this and now he's,
right.
all-state player, all-state player.
Right.
But he was in this position, or hey, he was a not starter, third string on the his freshman year, and now he's a starter on the varsity first state championship team.
Right.
So we have so many stories of that happening to where I think we do a really good job of evaluating our talent because it is a high school and you get what you get for the most part.
Right.
I know in this day and age of the transferring and stuff like that, it's a little more common now. But for the most part, it's a high school. You get who you get. And so our number one goal in our program, in terms of now we look at the football development part, is we really believe that we can develop our players better than anybody else. And me and Aaron came up with that mentality in South Orange County when you had so much competition around you. It was like, okay, we're not going to have the best talent. I mean, it's very clear, obviously. We are not going to do all these things better than everyone else. But it's like, what can we do better than everyone else? We can develop our players better than anywhere else. We can develop players. And I mean, not just on the field, but like we said, with the leadership aspect, on and off the field. So let's do that. Great. That's what we can control. And that's been excellence for us. And so as we do that, when we get these incoming freshmen, and then, they're pretty, early on said like, okay, you might play this, but who knows where you might end up. And we're going to decide what's best for the team while also keeping in mind, like, what's best for you as an individual. That's a hard balance to hold. Right. And then they go through sophomore year, junior year, right? And all those years we're kind of reevaluating where a kid, we're trying to find some kids are going to play very early because they're just naturally more talented than others.
Right.
Some kids aren't going to play their senior year.
Right.
I don't have control over that. I mean, that's just kind of how the game works out sometimes, right?
Right.
So they have to be very open and willing to be moved around a bit. And the kids that have struggled in our program are the ones that are really boxed into like, well, this is what I am. The kids that are more flexible and more open to other opportunities in different positions and things like that, those kids flourish. And so, some kids are going to play early on because they're naturally more talented. Other kids are going to play later.
Right.
I think the realistic goal for most kids, 90% of the kids, is that they could have be a contributor to the varsity team as their senior year. That's the goal.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to stay and go through that process,
Right.
to do that, then when you leave, we've set you up for success. Think about it. Like, look what you've been through, because too many people are quitting. Look at the transfer portal in college football right now.
Yeah.
It's like, Tom Brady talked about the other day. They asked him, in this day and age of the transfer portal, right? Would you have transferred when you were at Michigan? Because he was like the fifth string quarterback, right? Everybody's heard the story. And he said, well, I can't say that because who knows, right? But he says, here's what I will tell you about what I learned from going through that experience of being the fifth string quarterback and having to work my way up.
Right.
Yeah.
I would not be the quarterback I was in the future had I not gone through that.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing with our kids. You come in as a freshman and you go through that process, all those years, and it doesn't match up with your view, your parents' view at times.
I was going to say a lot of that's probably driven by the parents.
Yeah.
Right? I want you to be a running back, or I want you to do this.
That's correct. And it might not match up, but if you stick with it and you trust in the process and you trust in us and we build that trust with them.
Right.
That's why I said the relationships are built on trust. And then by the time you're a senior year, then you have a chance to contribute somewhere. I don't know how much, I don't know how little, but you have a chance to contribute to what we're doing. And I think that's the goal for 90% of our kids.
We had Gary Brackett on, and he was not the biggest guy, but he ended up being an unbelievable player for the Colts. And that's part of what he said. He said, I was never the biggest, so I always had to work so much harder. He says, but that's one thing I could control, is I could control how much time I spent and how hard I worked. And it made him learn that. And now he's phenomenal in everything he does because of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, we'll wrap up this first one and then we'll have you back on. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing this. And I feel like we just barely got through one little
I told
deal.
you.
So.
That's good.
But anyway, thank you so much. And
Yeah, thank
we'll have
you.
you on again.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me here.
See ya.